Oh, why, hey there! It looks as though it's time for another reading from a Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. That's right. Well, first, we've got to set the mood. That's right. A little bit of A harp today here. All right. Yeah, get the mood set. Get your energy right. We're going to dive in to the owl. 200 or 300 years ago, when people were far from being so crafty and cunning as they are nowadays, an extraordinary event took place in Little Town. By some mischance, one of the great owls, called horned owls, had come from a neighboring woods into the barn of one of the townsfolk in the night time, and when day broke did not dare to venture forth again from her retreat, for fear of other birds, which raised a terrible outcry whenever she appeared. In the morning, when the manservant went to the barn to fetch some straw, well, he was so mightily alarmed at the sight of the owl sitting there in the corner that he ran away and announced to his master that a monster, the likes of which he had never set eyes on in his life, and which could devour a man without the slightest difficulty, was sitting in the barn rolling its eyes about its head. "I know you already," said the master. "You have courage enough to chase a blackbird about the fields, but when you see a dead hen lying, you have to get sick before you'd go near it. I must go and see for myself what kind of monster it is," added the master, and went quite boldly into the granary and looked round him. When, however, he saw the strange grim creature with his own eyes, he was no less terrified than the servant had been. With 2 bounds he sprang out, ran to his neighbors, and begged them imploringly to lend him assistance against an unknown and dangerous beast, or else the whole town might be in danger if he were to break loose out of the barn, were it was shut up, rather. A great noise and clamor arose in the streets. The townsmen came armed with spears, hay-forks, scythes, and axes, as if they were going out against an enemy. Finally, the senators appeared with the burgomaster at their head. When they had drawn up in the marketplace, they marched to the barn and surrounded it on all sides. Thereupon one of the most courageous of them stepped forth and entered with his spear lowered, but came running out immediately afterwards with a shriek, and as pale as death, and could not utter a single word. Yet 2 others ventured in, but they fared no better. At last one stepped forth, a great strong man who was famous for his warlike deeds, and said, "You will not drive away the monster by merely looking at him. We must be in earnest here. But I see that you have all turned into women, and not one of you dares to encounter the animal." He ordered them to give him some armor, had a sword and spear brought, and armed himself. All praised his courage, though many feared for his life. The 2 barn doors were open, and they saw the owl, which in the meantime had perched herself in the middle on a great crossbeam. He had a ladder brought, and when he raised it and made ready to climb up, they all cried out to him that he was to bear himself bravely, and commended him to St. George, who slew the dragon. When he had just got to the top, and the owl perceived that he had designs on her, and was also bewildered by the crowd and the shouting, and knew not how to escape, well, she rolled her eyes, ruffled her feather, flapped her wings, snapped her beak, and cried, "To-hoo-it! To-hoo!" in a harsh voice. Strike home! Cried the crowd outside to the valiant hero. "Anyone who was standing where I am standing," answered he, "would not cry, 'Strike home.'" He certainly did plant his foot 1 rung higher on the ladder, But then he began to tremble, half fainting, and went back down again. And now there was no one left who dared to put him in such danger. The monster, said they, has poisoned and mortally wounded the very strongest man among us. By snapping at him and just breathing on him, are we too to risk our lives? They took counsel as to what they ought to do to prevent the whole town being destroyed. And for a long time everything seemed to be of no use, but at length the burgomaster found an expedient. My opinion, said he, is that we ought, out of common purse, to pay for this barn, and whatsoever corn, straw, or hay it contains, and thus indemnify the owner, and then burn down the whole building, and the terrible beast within. Thus no one will have to endanger his life. This is no time for thinking of expense, and stinginess would be ill applied. All agreed with him, so they set fire to the barn at all four corners, and with the owl was miserably burnt. Let anyone who will not believe it go thither and inquire for himself. All right, how about we read another one? Since that one was a little bit short, let's do another short one, huh? How about The Mouse, the Bird, and the Sausage? Once upon a time, a mouse and a bird and a sausage lived and kept house together in perfect peace among themselves, and in great prosperity. It was the bird's business to fly to the forest every day and bring back wood. The mouse had to draw the water, make the fire, and set the table, and the sausage had to do the cooking. Nobody is content in this world. Much will have more. One day the bird met another bird on the way and told him of his excellent condition in life. But the other bird called him a poor simpleton to do so much work while the two others led easy lives at home. When the mouse had made up her fire and drawn water, she went to rest in her little room until it was time to lay the cloth. The sausage stayed by the saucepans, looked to it that the victuals were well cooked, and just before dinner time he stirred the broth or the stew 3 or 4 times well round himself, so as to enrich and season and flavor it. And then the bird used to come home and lay down his load, and they sat down to table, and after a good meal they would go to bed and sleep their fill till the next morning. It really was a most satisfactory life. But the bird came to the resolution next day never again to fetch wood. He had, he said, been their slave long enough. Now that they must change about and make a new arrangement. So, in spite of all the mouse and the sausage could say, the bird was determined to have his own way. So they drew lots to settle it, and it fell so that the sausage was to fetch the wood, the mouse was to cook, and the bird was to draw water. Now see what happened. The sausage went away after wood, and the bird made up the fire, and the mouse put on the pot, and they waited until the sausage should come home, bringing the wood for the next day. But the sausage was absent so long that they thought something must have happened to him, and the bird went part of the way to see if he could see anything of him. Not far off he met with a dog on the road, who, looking upon the sausage as lawful prey, had picked him up and made an end of him. The bird then lodged a complaint against the dog as an open and flagrant robber. But it was no good at all, as the dog declared that he had found forged letters upon the sausage, so that he deserved to lose his life. The bird then very sadly took up the wood and carried it home himself, and related to the mouse all he had seen and heard. They were both very troubled, but determined to look on the bright side of things, and still remained together. And so the bird laid the cloth, and the mouse prepared the food, and finally got into the pot, as the sausage used to do, to stir and flavor the broth, but then she had to part with fur and skin, and lastly with life. And when the bird came to dish up the dinner, there was no cook to be seen. And he turned over the heap of wood and looked, but the cook never appeared again. By accident, the wood caught fire, and the bird hastened to fetch water to put it out. But he let fall the bucket in the well, and himself after it, and as he could not get it out again, he was obliged to be drowned. And that has been the mouse, the bird, and the sausage, and the owl. That's right. Okay, let's take us out. All right, that has been Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales, and I hope to see you on the next one. If you want your own copy, you know what to do. Go down in the description, click the affiliate link, support me, support the channel, support yourself with a new copy of Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. All right, and we'll see you on the next one. Kisses to the missus and a tip of the hat to your old cat there. Have a good one.